He had some amazing grace.
Let me put it that way. He wasn't looking for no glory.
You prefer to give credit to other people?
He stood out.
He maintained a high level of civility.
We recognize him as a hero, a national hero.
He was always interested in what was happening to people around, you know, who could do better, who could live better, what he could do to live better, he could tell them what they could do to help themselves to live better, the economic situations in every part of life.
I was very impressed by the amount of things he did, because he always seemed to try to work behind the scenes. He was not a man who liked to project himself and claim the credit. He preferred to give credit to other people if it would serve the interests of the people he's trying to serve.
You know, he was a man that never spoke much about his childhood, only little bits and pieces. Most of what I learned about him, he would tell our mother, and then she would tell us. He never used to speak much. She would tell us where he went and what he did and so on.
He started off in politics in the 1957 elections, which is my understanding, with the then National Labour Front Party, which was a party, I think one of the leaders was Miss Lionel Lapu. Stephen Campbell was elected for the Northwest District, which was then under constituency first past the post system. And he entered the then called Legislative Council. Campbell's instinct, shall we say, in seeing what was at that time, a rising star in the political firmament of Guyana, and trying to utilize it for the benefit of his own people, the Amerindians, was, I think, the correct instinct at that time.
He worked hard during the day, and when he came and he had his dinner and he rested a little, he would take out his fiddle. He had a banjo and he had a fiddle, and we used to gather around him, and he would start to play some of his songs that he remembered from the Spanish Arawak Morocco, the influence that the Spanish had on them. So he would play things like Granada and Malaguina, and picking it out on the banjo or playing it on the flute. And he would play the Mari Mari tunes. And then when he played the Mari Mari tunes, he and Mom took an interest in everything too. He and Mom would get up and show us while we sang the tune, and get up and show us how we did the steps. So much backward, so much forward. You bow, you turn around, you link hands, you go around. He was quite familiar with that part of his upbringing, and he remembered it. And he loved music. Dad loved music. As I told you, he taught himself to read music from a book. He used to look at the songs in the book and figure out the tune, and then he would teach Mom. She had a lovely singing voice, and then she would teach the children.
He was a knowledgeable man. He was like a new plant among some old cactuses. He stood out.
He didn't make enemies. Stephen Campbell knew that he had to walk the corridors of power in order to get the things done for the Amerindian communities that he represented. And so he maintained a level of civility, a high level of civility in his day-to-day life and in his political career. So he would talk to all opponents in a civil manner.
A very quiet and unassuming person.
He made friends easily.
And he fought so that Amerindians and Amerindian representation could be put on the front burner.
I learned a lot from him as we went along together with him, as I went along with him. Everything was a lesson. If there was a certain plant I had never seen before, he would tell me what plant it was, what was the name, what was the uses, you know. And we would collect orchids to take home because my mother loved orchids. So if you're going down the river and there's an orchid in a tree, he's going to climb the tree and pick it up.
During those days, I became very much attached to him because it was a period of learning. Because I didn't know much of the things I know anything about, right? And so I used to make myself available every time that he was available to listen to him and engage with him in conversation. That was most beneficial to me. Because let me tell you something, it is out of those discussions with Stephen Campbell and those long nights we spent at Gold Hill, what I learned, that stood me in good stead when that I got into active political life and had traversed the same paths that Stephen had earlier tried.
I followed him, small footsteps placed in his, through deep green growth and on the dappled trees, and listened enchanted to his forest lore, secrets of bark and root and leaf and flower, embedded forever in the memory of his son-child. I learned to love the rich black earth, to understand the laws of sustenance, a farmer's patient waiting, an ancient knowledge blended surely with the daytime sun, the stars and moon by night, and after dark he wove a spell with singing strings by flickering flambeau light. The people who helped him when he was quite young, a small boy, would have been the nuns who started the convent at Santa Rosa. And Sister Teresa, OBE, took him under her wing because she saw something in him that she didn't see in the others. She gave him books to read. And I remember his sister telling me, "Oh, Stephen never played too much. He under a tree reading a book." So he read and he read and he read. And that is how he educated himself. And then eventually he became a teacher catechist there at Santa Rosa as a young man.
It may look paternalistic to have a lot of schools, but schools are necessary if people are to feel competent, to feel that they can read and write and take their part in the ordinary life of the country. These schools were run by Amerindians themselves. They came from the Santa Rosa area and started teaching in the Rupununi. So the church has been behind that great development. I might mention Stephen Campbell, who was a product of the church and became the first Amerindian Member of Parliament, and took a great part in the arrangements for independence.
When we look at the life of Stephen Campbell, outside of the, let's call it this intrinsic principle that he had, this need to get his people to stand up, be counted, and to speak up for themselves, he also wanted to lead them towards the path of economic development that was recognized by coastlanders. And so he promoted in the Northwest the idea of the 5 C's. He saw the Northwest area as being ideal for the cultivation of citrus, coconut, coffee, cocoa, and for the rearing of cattle. And he embarked on many programs in order to get the Cherijagan administration then to pay more attention to agriculture in Region 1. So he would have been very disappointed. In terms of agriculture for Region 1, there is total neglect right now. Again, and I think the neglect now of agriculture and some of the issues that Stephen Campbell fought for is testimony to the contributions he made. Because when we look at a place like Hosororo, 30 years ago, in fact 40 years ago, Hosororo had pipes that they were going to run water to homes. Now the whole exercise, in fact it was Mrs. Jagan who fought Stephen Campbell down on that particular project to bring running water to Hosororo. all the equipment, the tanks, they're rotting there on the hill of Osororo. I remember the first September 10th Amerindian Heritage Day at the Amerindian Hostel when the late Dr. Jagan was speaking with respect to this day in Stephen Campbell. And here we had the President of Guyana, who was an adversary of Stephen Campbell then, speaking and now recognizing his achievement. I think more than the medals and the awards that you can give to a national, this is great recognition for Stephen Campbell and for the entire Amerindian population.
I wish that we can give him the honor that he deserves, that we recognize him as Amerindians, as a hero, a national hero. And because of that standing he had among us, we made sure that we lobbied with the government and the present government to make sure that the 10th of September is made a national holiday, and that was the day when he ended Parliament in 1957. I was one of the delegates to government committee to make sure that the Amerindian Heritage Month is moved from October to September. And I was at that time Deputy Chief for GUEP. I made sure that I uttered the words to say that we stick to our guns, that 10th of September should be it. And I told that to the government committee. And I'm happy to say that they obeyed us. So government will be around to say that they did it, but we had to argue. In fact, we made statement, our position in writing from GUEP, and that's how I think we influenced the date to be 10th of September. And I'm glad about it. But still we have to go further, that we want a national holiday. And I think this is the position of the whole of Amerindian community in Guyana, that we must have a national holiday in honor of Stephen Campbell.
Was the person who was looking for glory. Let me put it that way. He wasn't looking for no glory. He was an unassuming person who felt, who deeply felt about something, and he expressed himself very quietly but very forcibly. Right? And he never looked, as far as I knew Stephen Campbell, he never credited himself with any success. Whatever credit, there's people credit Stephen with his success. Not Stephen Campbell himself credit himself. He was never, I call him, an egotist.
His efforts were humane, more than for self, aggrandizement, as I say.
The executive committee of the party decided that as the party is making a beeline for the Amerindian vote, our most prominent Amerindian politician, Stephen Campbell, should be more widely known, not only in his own constituents, in his own area, shall we say, but throughout the country. As I said, by 1964 now, the country had switched to proportional representation, and there were no longer any geographical constituencies. So we had to project Stephen Campbell as the leader of the Amerindians throughout the country. In 1964, he had to be persuaded by his fellow Amerindians to form a thing called the Amerindian Association, and he was elected the first president.
Those of us who have been touched by his work, his writings, his representation, his humbleness, I think we have all gained from that. And the society at large and the nation could also take a lesson out of the works, the energies and the manner of people like Stephen Campbell.
I have always heard your music far away first. Ancient secrets from a gentle brown man. A piece with flowing rivers, earth and skies. Paddles dipping lightly with the tide. See the blossoms of the moor trees? Hold on to the mangrove while I pick orchids to take home for tomorrow. Young Ite leaves for Tikasiri. some roots to cure the children's sore eyes. And at nights a fiddle playing Mary Mary, fairy spell of silver tones. A Spanish Arawak picking out Granada upon a homemade banjo, a magical compulsion growing ever stronger in my bones. And now that music rising to crescendo, decades later through what seemed a torturous score. Siriki, Kavakaburi, Mari Mari, enmeshed forever into changing patterns. Images playing hide and seek within my head. Catch me if you can. Have I the time left to pin down a butterfly? The rich but hidden tapestry of a long-lost heritage cries out to be, bursting to break out, the hardening chrysalis, emerging free. Compulsion, magic, music. I am you, and you are me.